I'd like to welcome to the studio today Yosef Martin, CEO of Merchandise Liquidators. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. On behalf of EO South Florida, I'd very much like to congratulate you for earning your ranking on the Inc. 2014 fastest growing companies in the United States. It's fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Yosef, tell me a little bit about Merchandise Liquidators.
Merchandise Liquidators is basically a liquidation company where we buy overstock merchandise out of most of the drugstores, department stores that you see in the United States. And our goal is to bring it back to the secondary market below the wholesale cost.
Interesting. What got you involved in liquidation? What made you launch your company?
Well, I was a full-time international student and I ran into the opportunity in 2003. By the end of 2003, I liked the concept. I was trying to open before a wholesale company. And I found out that if I'm trying to open a wholesale company or a retail company, I am very low in the food chain because anytime you're trying to bring anything in, the price for the wholesale product would be very close to the retail cost in, say, Walmart. Right. And I wanted to distinguish myself and still come up with a good deal. And I found out that the only way to do it is to get excess inventory out of most of the stores that I'm competing with. And that was basically the idea. I started looking into that space. And I can say that by 2004, January 2004, I was already solid with a website running a business.
It's fantastic. What is your long-term vision for your company?
Basically, I focus more on short-term goals, which are going to be for the next 12 months. The long-term, for me, is always to dominate the space that I'm in. And the only way for me to acquire this is basically to look at the short-term, which is going to be the next 12 months. And it's more like in a sense where everything is important when it comes down to business. So my goals can be a bit different than what you would hear. My goals would be for this year, I want to make sure that accounting-wise, everything is going to go to the next level. Or say marketing-wise, I want to change the strategy and completely move to Web 2.0. This is basically the way I break it down into small goals with one objective that I would dominate the market, having a bigger buying capacity than everyone else to make sure that I can bring to the market a better price than anyone else.
Interesting. So when you launched your business, did you have a business plan prepared?
I actually didn't. I can say that I didn't have all the 101 strategies to open your business. I just saw a good concept and I figured, well, if I get something that go for a store for $1 and I can liquidate the same item for 10 cents, all I care about is finding the buyers. My only objective, I knew that the deals are good. The only way was, how can I make people hear about me? That was the only thing, and I had to basically break my back for a year to figure out the concept, how to bring people into my website. Once they came in, that was easy. The deal was there. I kept them as clients up until today.
So all your clients are generated from web traffic?
Primarily, but in time, if you go to main chain stores trying to buy their goods, they'll just refer you to me. And so it's also word of mouth. People like to keep their suppliers private, but there is always throughout the years those people that would still share that information and they would bring in, but primarily it is from web traffic.
Early on, how were you able to establish credibility?
For me, I was very straightforward with clients. I started a business from my one-bedroom apartment. And I basically invited them over. I told them exactly the way it is. I never told them that I have something I don't. I told them I have one bedroom, and if you want to meet me, we'll come and talk. I think that personal connection was making a difference. Once I moved into a warehouse, every time while I had salespeople, I would explain to them the importance of inviting people over to check the merchandise. I think that worth 1,000 words if you come over and see the goods by yourself.
And you told me earlier that you have key partnerships as well in terms of national retailers that you do business with.
Correct. I deal with most of the stores, most of the chain stores in the United States. I cannot disclose the names because no retailer wants to have their name affiliated with the salvage industry, but I can tell you that the largest companies, the largest retailers in the United States are basically selling me their goods, anything that was getting out of the shelf by the end of the season or whatever they had left in their storage. Some items were returned back when you return your item. Those are the customer returns. And on a daily basis, we're getting truckloads and moving them in. I would just like to say that approximately 80% of our goods are going directly or indirectly outside of the country.
Interesting. How do you distinguish merchandise liquidators from your competitors?
I think when you go into the liquidation space, it's a very broad space and there are many opportunities. What I'm trying to establish is not a deal of a particular company that got out of business and I would liquidate their inventory. That would be, this is what most people look at when it comes down to liquidation. Someone that got out of business or a company that brought inventory from China, something was held in custom, the retailer rejected the merchandise and then they're trying to liquidate that. I'm trying to establish a consistency for my clients. So my goal is not to look for those one-time deals as much as it is to get contract out of a retailer that on a daily basis they would have to remove UPCs out of their shelves, get it in, categorize it, and bring it back to my vendors, so my clients. So if you have, say, a clothing store and you like a particular line of clothing, I would try to consistently bring you on a weekly basis the same clothes versus the other liquidation companies that would focus on getting you clothing that were coming out of run-on production or so on. This is something that I'm trying to do consistent.
Interesting. So I, like yourself, am also an entrepreneur for more than 25 years, and there's been more than one time where I've woken up 3 o'clock in the morning in a cold sweat trying to solve a problem. So I'm curious, what keeps Yosef up at nighttime?
Currently, I have a 5-month-old that keeps me awake, and I wake up 3 times, not once. I can tell you that it's true that I think for me, when it comes down to business, one of the worst things that can happen is to find out that your site is down or something from that nature. That's basically what would keep you awake, especially when primarily your exposure comes out of the internet. I actually think that this is where I decided after years to basically make sure that I wouldn't have to worry about that anymore, and I can say that it made a big difference. I decided not to worry about incoming traffic to that extent by basically creating repeating clients and owning contracts, not worrying about once you own a contract, you bring the merchandise in and you worry about selling it later, you have established already a major clientele. Even if your site is down because of whatever reason, your clientele are still here. Yeah, you might not get some new ones for the next week if that happens, and I went down for a week, but you established already your clientele, you have an incoming business coming consistently, people are depending on you, and that was the only thing that was important for me, because seriously, the only thing that was difficult for me was the website. If anything happened, the server crashed, I couldn't sleep. That since 2009, I grew to a point that it was less important.
How did you finance the beginning of your business?
In the beginning, I was flipping the goods. I didn't own the goods.
Right.
And I always kept on the back of my head that I can only get so far as a broker. I think I was lucky. I was able to get contracts without being forced to buy the goods up front, as it is those days. Back then, in 2004, it was a bit different. And now, since there is elasticity in a market, when it comes down to that space, they get other people coming in telling them, we'll buy it out. You don't need to deal with brokers, and I'm one of those people. That changed. In 2007, I already had a warehouse, and I was able to facilitate merchandise in my place. But in the beginning, it was just flipping.
Interesting. Well, you're one of the fastest growing companies in the country. How have you been able to finance the growth of your business?
I guess it was just falling into place. The way I structured the merchandise, the business was buying the goods that I know I can sell. Some of them I knew I can hold off and sell it a little bit slower, but it was important for me to keep it because it wouldn't come on a weekly basis, so, and it wouldn't take too much space, say cosmetics. But some other goods, I figured out that the only way for me to do it was to move it fast with a very low margin, very low margin because it's very bulky. So I had to basically be very careful on what I buy. I did receive a large credit line, but I never had to use it.
Interesting. What do you think the toughest decision you ever had to make since the launch of your business?
It was really moving from one warehouse to another. I mean, that's one of those decisions where you're moving into a larger space. It's a bit scary. And then you move, you grow over there, then you move to another space, or you take in another warehouse. I think that's something that makes you stay at night. Location is important, and nobody want to move out of a place that you saw some growth in, but after a while you overcome this place and you need to move to another. I think that would be the toughest decisions.
Yosef, you're a very inspirational entrepreneur, very hardworking. I'm impressed. I'd like to make an investment in your company. I'd like to invest $1 million, but I'm curious, how would you deploy those funds?
First of all, when it comes down to money that nature, I can basically display certain goods that can be purchased with aggregated data of how long will it take to move it. And since we have the facility, we can go and store it. When it comes down to operating or say fulfillment, we wouldn't have to worry about that, but it would basically be towards goods.
Interesting. If you had magical powers for just a couple minutes and you had the ability of going back in time to day one of your business all the way up until where you are today, you had the power to reverse any decision you made, what would you change?
Wow. I think one thing I would change is not trying to do so many other things aside of the liquidation right off the bat. You see, when I began the business, I did well when it comes down to search engine optimization, and I was growing very fast and I was excited. And then I took off and built other businesses, little businesses that were generating some income out of the search engine optimization, affiliate programs. And after a while, since I saw it wasn't consistent as the liquidation, since the liquidation gives you the opportunity to grow for a multi-million-dollar business very fast, I decided to shut it off. And I think that period of time, that it took me a while to understand that I need to go and make sure I dominate the market in that industry before I can put my head into another business. That particular point in time was slowing me down, and if I had to make a decision, would have been that particular move and wasting time and money into the wrong verticals.
Interesting. So you still have another minute of magical powers. Instead of looking back, let's look forward. Let's go forward 5 years. How do you think the business climate will change, and how will it affect your business?
Business climate is very dynamic, especially in liquidation. I can tell you that in certainty that in 5 years from now, if you're going to look at what we have today, the actual deals that we have today, it would probably be significantly different than what we're going to see in 5 years. As it comes down to it, many of the retailers are trying to liquidate the items themselves. My goal for the future is to go in the back end and help retailers in reverse logistic process, where it comes down to scanning and deliver data in return of allowing me to go and move more of their goods into the end consumer to bring it back to the secondary market.
Interesting. What one word describes Yosef Martin as an entrepreneur?
Only one.
Only one.
I would say I am hoping honest.
Nice. In your opinion, are entrepreneurs born or are they made?
I was made. I wasn't born. I think I was made.
How do you define success?
It's a very personal question. I think when you ask what is success, I don't see it necessarily only in dollars amount, how much you have, and what is your net worth. I think it comes down to self-actualization. If you're feeling fulfilled with what you're doing, and you feel that you accomplished something that you wanted to accomplish, that is a success. It can be translated to capital, it can be translated to connections, to many things. Doing a marathon, everything is, it's going to be very personal, but I think it's self-actualization.
Very interesting. If you have a problem that you're trying to solve, or you're brainstorming a new idea, or you're looking for guidance of some nature, where do you go to for that today?
That's my favorite question. I am a big believer of connections, knowing the right people. And for a long time, I was basically gathering a group of friends, strategic or just good friends, and I like to consult with them. Currently, in other businesses that I have a board, and we sit down and we discuss over there, and that was something that I wanted to do for a long time, to have my own board. And when I have a board, it's important for me that everyone in that board is going to be strategic.
Interesting. I'm sure you would agree with me that great leaders are always learning. What is the primary source of your knowledge?
I think basically talking to people, either in different space, my space. I'm a fan of learning from other people's success or failures. So,
as a leader, how do you make a mark in your business or in your community?
I think coming down to business, you're making a mark when everyone feel you. Okay, you go in aggressively and everybody knows who you are. So growth is important. Critical mass is important. It doesn't have to be regarding liquidation, because say in the liquidation I will have most of the contracts and everybody knows that Joseph Martin has the contract for so on. So you make a mark by being very known and so on. But I think in general, once you have a particular business that all your competitors feel you, that's when you make a mark. In your community, it's important to understand that you're only going to make a mark by people knowing you, mostly in a positive way. Because if you're coming in a negative way, people would remember you, they'll forget about you until they'll hear your name again in the news. Once they trust you to go and educate people, say you're going to help other entrepreneurs in your community, they'll respect you, and then you actually bring yourself a sense of responsibility to grow your own business. I think you're going to agree with me that once you coach someone, once you're being the mentor for someone else, you feel that you cannot fail on your business now.
Right.
So you're going to just think outside of the box. You're going to go back to basic with whatever you just taught your people. It's going to bring it to you back.
Sure. Well, give me an example of something that you've done that's incredibly cool or fun that you've done either personally or professionally.
Do a lot of fun things. I mean, just one. All right. I think that one of my favorite parts in owning a business is traveling and associating with other people. That's the bottom line. I mean, yes, it is as fun as everyone thinks. They say, well, how great it is that a business owner can travel all the time, and you'll hear people tell you, oh, it's getting old and I'm tired. But no, it's not. I love it. Let me travel all day long. I love it. I love associating with people.
Sure.
I love traveling all the time. So that is.
Excellent. If I say the words trust and respect, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think if you have, if you trust, first of all, yourself into achieving a particular goal, you'll be able to trust other people to do the same. Respect something that you have to earn.
Final question. Let's pretend for a moment that you wake up tomorrow morning and Merchandise Liquidators is no more. What is the next business that you're going to launch?
I have other businesses, so I don't have to launch another one, but I like the e-commerce business. I love it, especially subscription. I do own one in that space, but I think it's something that I had a passion for. When we spoke back, you asked me what would be the one thing I would do to reverse. Going forward, if I had to go forward and to start all over again, I would definitely go into a subscription-based model business that's dependent on e-commerce and mostly social media. That's extremely fascinating. And I think in Business Insider, they actually categorize it as the business for 2014.
Interesting. Fantastic. Yosef, it has been an absolute pleasure having you in the studio today. Again, on behalf of EO South Florida, congratulations for your amazing success. We hope to see you again in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Be well.